My biological father abandoned my sister and me when we were babies, and he never came back. And then when he died a few years ago, when I was pregnant with my twins, who are now 6 years old, I cried, and I never thought I would cry over him, but I did. And I think it was because it's not even think I know it. It was because I realized, like, wow, he was never going to really come back. And I didn't realize I was holding on to that until he passed away. And I was like, wow, and it's like, okay, so I have a lot of stuff I have to unpack here, because I didn't realize like how much his abandoning us affected me. And of course I knew it affected me. I don't know how you can have a parent, one of your blood biological parents, that just basically reject you and leave. And he was like one of those people that's like, okay, if I don't mess with the mom, I'm not dealing with the kids. I hate people like that. Like, absolutely hate them. Because the kids are separate from the parent, and it's just vile to think that way. And I think that's why I don't really agree with the therapist on this one, because because I actually went through it, to have someone completely reject you because they're not with the mother anymore because they were married. And it's like, oh, we're getting divorced now. Now I'm gone. And from what my mother told me, it seemed like, okay, he's only around because he wanted my mother. And then when he couldn't have her, he was very abusive, almost unalived my mom. And so she had to get away from his stupid self. And, he was just very controlling, I guess. And so it's like he wanted possession of my mom. So it's like, if I can't have you, then I don't care about the kids. Like, I don't want to be around. It's like that. People who are like abusive and hateful like that, it's like, I just don't care about the children. Basically, like, the children are attached to the mother or the father. And I see this play out no matter what gender, and whoever's doing it. I cannot stand it. Like Nick Cannon called it is like, the children are a pawn. So I've seen women do it who are quote unquote baby mamas. And I think this is the stereotype that, Hollywood has perpetuated. So people think all single mothers are like that. And all of us are not, obviously. We're not a monolith. So that's why I created my channel, to remind people we're not a monolith either. And so I would never have kept my kids from their father. I don't care how I feel about them. Like, even my first kid's father, he was a total asshole. And he was one of those types. He just didn't care. He's just running off. Like, oh, if I don't get along with the mom, then whatever, forget the kid. But he always had an open door. He could have always came. We had a court order. And he did have, visitation rights. He did have custody. Partial, what is it called? Like, he had cut like visitation as far as custody. Because most courts are going to give the fathers some custody. So guys pretending that, oh, she's keeping the kids from me, is a complete total lie. So he always had custody, but he chose not to be in our son's life. And so whatever, it worked out for me, because I feel like he's a bad parent, a bad person, a bad influence. And when I got married, I was happy to have my son see a better man, like a Russell Wilson, basically, versus a Future, which was exactly my situation. And I was more than happy for my oldest son to see a better father figure / role model to model himself after, versus the riffraff that I got with when I was in the Army and I was like 20 years old. And that's why I also hate when guys, the incels and the manosphere red pillars, idiots, blame women, because one, you're too young to know how to pick. Your brain's not even fully developed. Like, you're just too young. And then two, the guy is typically going to be older. He was so much older than me. So maybe he was choosing wrong, because I ended up raising our son. My son's now 20 years old. So I raised him. I made sure he had a great life. It was the older guy, his, biological father or sperm donor, whatever he is. It was him who chose to run off. So it was like, maybe he's the one who chose wrong, because he chose to create a baby with somebody and he didn't want to raise the baby, and he's the deadbeat. I chose right, because I did love him, and we actually planned for our son. So that was another thing when she said that. this therapist about her parents who were teenagers and they planned her. I know it may sound crazy to people, but yeah, we actually planned our son. So he wasn't even like a oopsie in a trap or anything. We sat there and we were in love. At least I thought we were. And then I found out he was cheating. You know, maybe he was doing a Nick Cannon. Maybe he was pretending to be nice and then the real guy came out. So it's weird when people are like, oh, you should have chose, but you think I'm choosing a-holes on purpose? Like, do you think the guy's really coming at you like an asshole and you're just like, oh, let me go date him and have a baby with him? And it's like people don't realize the cupcaking, they used to call it. I think Tariq Nasheed calls it that, but I've been saying that word a lot lately. Like, well, I've used it another time. But people don't realize all the lying and the love bombing and the guys just manipulating they be doing the most. And people know that, especially guys. Like, they're promising marriage. They will promise everything under the sun just to get to sleep with you. It's so pathetic that sex is that important to them. It's like very primitive. And I feel like as a whole, men do function. They are low vibe. And I love that they're using this word again, because it kind of became like people trying to be like offended when you would say like you're low vibrational. But if you are, you are. And men tend to function in the root chakra, which is like in the groin area, which is low vibe. So if you look at, you know, the chakras, like a chart with the chakras, the root chakra is red and it's like way at the bottom. And then, you know, a lot of women, I won't say most, but, you know, a good amount of women, if not majority, if not, you know, we tend to be more intuitive. We're usually functioning at a much higher vibration. And so that's why when people say, oh, you must have been at a certain level and that's why you're attracted what you're attracted, it's like, that's not really true. I feel like this person pretended to be at a higher vibrational level than they really were. So you are attracting what you are because that person was matching your energy. And then once they got you, now they're switching it up like a Nick Cannon did. Like all guys, probably most guys, if not all, do. So we're going to stop with the gaslighting and pretending like women are just out here dating the quote unquote bad boys. It's like, even if he's a bad boy and he's possibly, you know, mistreating you, I don't know. I just don't see anyone like, oh, I'm just going to go date this guy. It's like majority of the times he's treating her well. Like, even if he's like, I dated a guy when I was still in school. So obviously I'm younger, and I was a teenager. So we actually grew up together, and he was a quote unquote bad boy, but he was really sweet to me. And what you love about a bad boy is you do feel protected. So we would be in these spaces, and I had never felt like unsafe. I always knew he could, you know, throw hands and fight everybody because he usually was doing it, but he was amazing. I thought it was sexy, and there was nothing wrong with that. It's like that's how we're conditioned, whatever. I don't know if it's subconscious biology, I don't know, but I knew I wanted a man's man, someone who could protect me. And that's what I've been brainwashed from religion and trained to think of how to think of men or boys, or, you know, whoever I was dating, whatever age, because of fairy tales, etc. So it was like, I don't know if it's conditioning or biology, like you just naturally, women know that the guy's stronger, and so you expect him to protect you or what. But that's what I was looking for. So it wasn't about, oh, I just want to date a bad boy. You're looking for someone who's you feel like you're gonna feel safe with. So yeah.
Never put a woman before you, or even my mother. And I'm saying I don't agree with that. When I have kids with my husband, we come first. Doesn't mean the kids go without, but when you have two adults who understand that we're showing learned behavior and we're teaching our kids what a healthy relationship looks like, not just for marriage, but also them. It doesn't mean that the kids don't eat and the wife and husband does. If there's a hierarchy for me that goes God, my hubs, me, and then the kids.
I understand
and so
that.
The covenant is broken. Only for me, I'm not self-projecting. The covenant is broken when it goes the other way. Of course, if I'm married and my husband says, you know, it's only you know, one person gets to eat and there's three of us, I'm sure both of us are going to equally agree it's the child.
Right.
But when it comes to making sure our relationship is healthy, which is really the healthiness of the environment for our child, for me, my value is only my husband comes first and I come first. And I find in my session of 17 years, Nick, there's been many more men than women who come in and say, that the relationship failed. And if you look at divorce rate statistics of when divorce happens, it's after that first child. It's after, because
they should have never got married in the first place.
Probably so, but also because, whoever it was, and from my experience, it has been the woman. We're not knocking women, but it's been the woman more who has placed the child first and totally dissipated the man out the relationship.
Only reason why I'm gonna have to disagree with you on this, Doc,
it's okay,
is because if we're talking life,
these
children did not ask to be here.
Right.
They are our responsibilities.
100%.
As individuals, I can't put my desires and my happiness, or I shouldn't,
right,
over someone that I am responsible for. So I'm not even talking about putting food on the table and all that. We're talking about mental, physical, and spiritual well-being in a household. I'm not, and again, this is pretty heavy, because one, I grew up with it, and I'm a product of it, and I'm producing it.
Yeah.
When an adult is saying, Mama gotta live too. Mama need her man. Daddy gonna do his thing. I'll be back. When those mentalities are presented to a child,
that's a different mentality.
That's where abandonment issues surface, and where a child feels like I'm not good enough in that sense, because they made decisions for themselves before they made decisions for me. And children pick up on that at a very early age. So I much rather.
So yeah, I definitely agree with Nick Cannon again. And of course, I see somebody's comment saying he won't understand because he's not something. So like, if you're not religious, you're not going to abide by what the therapist is saying. I definitely relate to Nick Cannon again because of the abandonment issues, I guess. I don't want my children to ever feel like I'm choosing a grown person over them, whether it's their husband, a boyfriend, whomever. It's like my children come first because I have to protect them. And obviously, like, that's not every situation. Like, there's times where they have to wait. Like I said before, like, if your husband is struggling mentally or he needs me or whatever, like, obviously, like, it's about who needs me the most at any given time. And majority of the times it's going to be the kids who need you the most because they're children and they're dependent on you. They literally are your dependents. When you do your taxes, they are your dependents. Of course, when some people do their taxes, even their spouses, they're dependent, depending on whether they're taking care of them or not. But typically it's going to be mom and dad, husband and wife, who are, working, and they're just, they're married. So say you're filing taxes, they're married, joint married taxes, and the kids are the dependent. Or if you do file, for your pay stub, they say, how many dependents do you have? Sometimes usually it's going to be the man, including the wife in there, like she's, a child as well. But it's like the kids are always the dependent. They're never like, oh, I don't know, they're up there with us, like, until they become adults. They are always the dependent. So, of course, like, once kids grow up and leave the house, you and your spouse can put each other, put all that attention on each other. But if you're choosing to bring kids into the marriage, into the relationship, into the family, it's just, I don't know. It's just like, I don't want, because I think when you grow up and you see your parents doing that, it doesn't feel good. Like, my mother would put men in front of us all the time, and she was always, quote unquote, catering to them. So it was like, you didn't feel like you were important. You did have like, kind of like, I feel neglected. I feel like my mom's not paying attention to me. Like, for one example, I woke up and the house smelled really good, like pancakes. And I was like, I ran downstairs and there was no breakfast for me. And I was like, Mom, like, like, did you cook? And she's like, oh yeah, I just made such and such, her boyfriend at the time, who I think is the guy she's married to now. But I can't, she had a couple of boyfriends. I'm not saying my mother was like this, revolving door, but she maybe had two or three boyfriends. Yeah, 3 boyfriends in my childhood, which is still kind of seems like quite a bit for kids, in addition to my dad. And so she, she was like, oh, I cooked for him. I didn't know you would want anything. And I'm like, of course I want something to eat. Like, who turns down pancakes first and foremost as a kid, especially? And 2, like, it's morning. I'm hungry. Like, it's breakfast. I'm breaking my fast. I'm going to obviously need to eat. But that's just, again, my mother putting men first. And she did it a lot. Like, oh, that's his special place where he wants to sit, so you have to move. So it was just like things like that I'm like, I don't want to repeat that behavior. But yeah, once I got older, I was like, I don't want to repeat that behavior with my children. I don't want them to ever feel like they are less important than the other adult in the house who is a grown person who doesn't really need me as much as the children need me. So again, just not really, I guess too, that's why people like us, like Nick Cannon and me, we're probably not going to be religious types. We're typically going to be more spiritual and going with what feels right spiritually than what a religion is telling us to do, which I think is why religion is so man-made, because it doesn't feel natural. Like, I don't know how she's okay with that. Like, what she's explaining, it feels very uncomfortable even hearing her say it. So, like, the same way people might feel uncomfortable with what Nick Cannon is saying and what I'm saying, we feel uncomfortable. So, it's just like, this is our normal and that's yours.
Say, it ain't about your mama right now. I'm rocking with you. And say that to my child as much as possible, even if that hurts mama's feelings. To me, at least, because I know that child is going to grow up with a certain level of self-worth that they didn't feel like daddy put work before me, daddy put women before me, daddy put whatever before me. If I can instill anything into my own children, is that you are my number one priority. Even all that I do is for you. Every dollar that I make is going to you. So, again, I'm pretty sure people in the comments going to debate, have different things, like, and even we all have different experiences. But every time I see an adult put their happiness,
So you're describing more of an adult saying, "I'm gonna do me at the expense of you."
even in a marriage,
Yeah,
because
no, that's what I'm saying. Even in a marriage, but we're not talking about the level of I'm gonna do me at the expense of your needs. I'm gonna do me for my pleasures at the
because we
expense
do that
of
as
that.
humans.
But a healthy family dynamic takes balance, and it's very unhealthy for a child to feel like they are number one above authority, because what happens is they grow up to then disrespect authority, entitled, and they grow up with this narcissistic type of personality, even if they're not diagnosed with it. And then you have
Spoiled
these
brats.
kids, and then you have these kids who don't respect when law enforcement pulls them over and we have an issue. They're going to school and these teachers can't even get them to sit still enough because they're so used to being number one and things going their way. No. The child should get their
So I feel like she's taking it to her own extreme. So Nick is being extreme with, it's hard to explain it because, like, I can see what he's saying, but you don't need to be, like, disrespectful to the other parent. But especially when you're not with them, you're co-parenting or, whatever. They're not even around at all. But, you can probably say, like, this is us. But I feel like that's something I wouldn't need to even say. Or, if you're talking to your kids, you're just like, this is not about your dad. It's just you and me. I never really felt like I ever had to say anything like that. But I'm very respectful of their father because at the end of the day, he's still 50% of them. So it's like putting down the other parent to me is like putting down my child, because they are going to love their other parent no matter what, whether the parent is a deadbeat, on drugs, on, a serial killer, whatever he's doing or she's doing, that child's going to love, because that's a part of them. So they're going to have some love for that person, that other parent, no matter how you feel about them. And so I always am reticent of that. So I think in this situation, the two of them, I would agree with both of them. But the therapist said it best, I feel, when she says it requires balance. I don't know where she's going with it, but I do agree, like, you should not always be putting kids first at that extreme level where it's like, forget what your dad said, da-da-da-da. Like, no, whether we're co-parenting or married, we respect what the other parent is saying, because we know at the end of the day, we can't be bickering with each other, because then the children are going to use that against us, and now we're raising kids that are going to grow up and be spoiled or be entitled, be narcissistic, etc., etc. So you do have to. So that's one thing I've always done with my kids' dads. The dads that are I'm raising my kids with my ex-husband and my ex-fiance. So it's two men, and I am like that with both of them, where they're what they say, I almost always support it, and vice versa. So like my kids are like disrespectful to their dad, I'll be like, nope, don't talk to your dad like that. Be respectful. And he does the same thing for me. If they put in a rule, like, you're grounded, you can't go outside for a week, I'm enforcing that. Like, even if I have them the next week and it's my week, I'm enforcing. Your dad said you can't go outside, so you can't go outside. I don't, like, it doesn't help the child to be, like, vindictive and weird and be like, oh, I don't like the other parent, so forget what he said. I'm trying to be the fun parent, or I'm trying to be the favorite parent that you'd really like, or I'm just trying to get back at him. So he say you can't go outside. You can go outside, have fun. Like, that doesn't help. It doesn't help your child. So again, if you're really putting your children first, there are going to be times where you're going to have to agree with the other parent and be basically present as a united front, no matter what the status of your relationship is or where it's at, so that children can see, no matter what, my parents are my parents. They're never going to be my friends. They're never going to be weird and, doing strange things to like attack the other parent, because at that point, you are no longer putting the children first. You are putting your own selfish feelings in front of that child, because now you're saying, I'm going to be doing me and I'm going to be mean to the other parent. So if the other parent says our children cannot have a game system, I'm going to be like, forget that. I'm going to get you the new PS5, and like, that's now being selfish and putting your needs and your wants, not even needs, but like what you feel like doing, in front of your child. And so that's not the way to go. It's highly problematic. If you want to raise respectful kids who respect authority, their teachers, police, etc., it does start in the home. And I guess you could say in the home, so to speak, because of course if you're co-parenting, you're not all in the house, but you are still home, because a lot of times my kid's father, like I said, I live with my ex-husband, so my other my other kid's father, he FaceTimes them. And so we are still home, obviously. So, like if he says something, I'll be like, okay, here's your dad. And if he says something, they roll their eyes, whatever, say they do something. I'm like, nope, you don't do that. Like if he doesn't catch it or he can't hear or something, I will correct them. And he does the same thing for me.
Feelings hurt by hearing no are the first place a child should see that you are not always number one is circumstantial, should be at home. Because life is going to teach you that you are not always going to be the butter cake of everybody's dessert. Nick, I'm sorry. So, but what I'm saying, then what that does is that creates that emptiness that I'm going to poke at you again, that emptiness and that sense of inadequacy within you, because you were groomed in a certain way that life can't maintain. And so what happens is you're number one and you're the golden child and all these things. It happens with athletes. Then you go into the real world after you retire and everything shatters. Now you got depression, your suicide ideations,
but they
you have
still
anxiety.
Accomplish things that most people will never accomplish and experience great experience, because we told them how great they were from the beginning. We instilled in them that we're going to support you all the way along your ride, so you can not only reach the levels that you want, so you can reach back and then get the rest of the family.
We will support you along your ride. That does not mean that kid doesn't understand balance, that there's a thing called boundaries that our community doesn't seem to have, probably because of that dynamic. The boundary goes, baby, we've been at your football game, your soccer game, your ballerina game, daddy and I all day. It's 9:00. It's shutdown time. There's a boundary where it's time where this is our time, and you're teaching your child how to grow up and not be a narcissist that then needs his woman or her man to put them first over everything, which is a fairy tale and unrealistic. You're teaching them the balance between, we are a family dynamic. There's times that daddy's going to come first, there's times that mama's going to come first, and there's times that you come first. But what we do is we teach that so that it becomes more of a wholesome type of feel, not me, and the moment you don't get me, you flee because you can't sit in your emotions of hearing no, because you got to control things to keep things the way you need it, which is called codependency. So what you describe is then creating a codependent child that says, if I'm not the center, guess what? Fuck all this, because I'm not the center of attention.
It got to be the center. It got to be the understand that in the dynamic.
It's weird because I feel like the codependence comes from people who have to be married. So it's really strange that she's explaining it that way. And I'm like, did that happen for her? It's confusing how to explain it, but you can't be codependent if you're single. Like if you're okay with being single and you're always single for whatever your reasons are, because I feel like we all have stuff to unpack, even the married people who think they're perfect, and including the childless people who think they're perfect. Everyone has stuff to unpack. No one's perfect. And so I feel like being codependent means I need to have a spouse. Like I can't do this without my spouse. If I get divorced, I'm going to get married again like 4 more times. It's like, that is codependent. You cannot do life without another person, another adult. And I feel like it's interesting because America creates narcissists and a hell of a lot of codependency because we are really into Christianity and religion. And the narcissism is like, oh, we're the most important people in the world. Like Americans just think they're God's gift to the entire globe. And it's like, you're not. And so that's like a lot of the narcissism is, I want things right now. I'm very greedy and I'm a consumer. It's me, me, me. And that's what the childless people I was just thinking about when she said that comes into play, because they're like, oh, I don't want to deal with kids. Like, we've created that culture. That culture's like, there's more narcissists more than ever. I feel, and I looked it up and they said it's true that, there's more narcissists than ever before existing in America. And you can see it in the birth rates and people talking crap about babies and children, little beings that they used to be once. And to me, that's extremely narcissistic, because it's like, how can you separate from what you once were? But narcissists can do that, and they project a lot. And so they're just like, oh, I want to eat whatever when I want to eat. I want to sleep in when I want to sleep in. I want to travel. I want to do this. Me, 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 me. Narcissism. Okay, so much narcissism. And then the codependent people are, my husband, my man, my man, my man. Like, I've got my husband, my husband, my husband. Like, we been in it 2 seconds. I thought she was counseling Nick Cannon, but 2 seconds in, we already know she's married. It's all about her marriage. And I'm like, who are we counseling, her or Nick Cannon? Like, I'm confused. But, so we got to always know you got a husband, you got a wife. I mean, whenever I'm in a live and people are married, they can't mention their spouse fast enough. It doesn't matter what topic we're talking about. You got to know they have a spouse. If they don't have kids, we got to know they don't have kids. It's like an identity thing at that point. And so what she's explaining is really honestly what I'm looking at when I see married people and versus childless people. And it's funny because there's actually this this skit that was going on TikTok where they were talking about the girl who always brings her boyfriend everywhere. That's codependent as fuck. And so they'll be like, oh, we're going on a girls trip. And she'll be like, do you mind if I bring Brad along? And it's like, no, like, we don't, it's just us girls. Like, none of us are bringing our husbands or our boyfriends. Like, why are you bringing him? Because you're codependent. And it's like, that's what I feel a lot of married couples are like. It's just, I'm here and he's here, and everyone doesn't always want to deal with the both of you. Like, you married that person. Happy for you, and that's great for you. I didn't marry that person. So, like, I could give another example. My mother, she loves to bring her husband into everything. We cannot stand him. We've never liked him. The entire family hates him. And he seems to be getting worse with age. He's just more bitter, more jealous. She dated down and married down, of course, like most Black women seem to do. And so we do not like him. And because of that, but she'll still be like he insulted my sister. And then my mom had the nerve to be trying to, when she called to talk to her about it, she had the nerve to try to bring him back on to FaceTime. My sister said she hung up the phone. Like, everyone does not want to look at your husband. Like, just like the children are not the butter cake of the world, neither is your spouse. Everyone's is in love. Half the time we don't even like your husband or your wife. We are friends or family members with you. And that's it. So don't put your spouse on people just because you got married to them. You're not one person. That's another thing I hate. And that's the epitome of like codependency is, oh, when you get married, it's two people coming into one. It's so corny and it's so fake. And it's like, that's not really what is happening here. It's still two separate people who should have their own two separate identities and have their own separate interests. And a lot of times when you do morph so much into each other, that is unhealthy. And that can make a marriage fall apart as well, because you don't have any, you're boring. It's like, oh, I'm doing whatever he's doing, whatever he likes, whatever she does. I'm right here. I'm up her ass. And at some point, like, what happens if the person gets bored? Now they're cheating. They step out. They want a divorce. Now people are trying to unalive themselves because they've self-identified so much as a spouse, as a wife, as a husband, that's probably one of the, I want to say when I was in the military, in the army, they did a a briefing, and they were talking about suicide or whatever. And they were talking about suicide, and they were saying like that's not one of the like leading things that happens when suicide happens is because of divorce. So it's basically codependent people like, oh my gosh, how can I live without this person? Like, how can I live by myself? And then guys are very codependent. It's so crazy how codependent males have been all this time, and women did not realize it. We've let them play the okie doke on us and thinking that we're the clingy ones, when it's really men who cannot be single for 2 damn minutes. And I realized this like way back, probably like 10, 15 years ago or something, that men are never really fucking single. Like they'll say I'm single, and then you always have some issue with some female. And it's like, how are you single, but I'm always dealing with your bullshit drama? Like there's always some female in the wing somewhere. You know, I'm over. And it is triangulation when you look back on it now. We're learning these things now thanks to the internet. But yeah, it's like, why am I always in some conflict with some female? I thought you were single. Like when I'm single. There is no man waiting in the wings. And then it annoys me because there's always males, you know, the incels, the red pillars, who always projecting, always acting like women are doing what the fuck they're doing. It's like, no, you're the hoe. You're the 304. You're the one that always has a Rolodex of people. Not a Rolodex because I'm aging myself, but you're the one that always has a roster of people in your phone who you can call if we don't work out. Like women, I'm not like that. I think a lot of women don't function that way. It's like you're the only one. Like when you're with that person, that's your person. That's it. And so yeah, it's like you're codependent. So gosh forbid a guy doesn't have a roster of females at the ready. Like say like his main relationship doesn't work out, his marriage doesn't work out. He's got to have a ready, willing, waiting supply for his codependent issues that he has going on. And then that also leads into why men get married so quickly after getting a divorce, because God forbid you're single for 2 damn minutes and you're not, you know, attached to somebody. So it's like, child, this is codependency on steroids. Marriage is. So yeah.
We grow up to, if we don't do the work, right, and get a sense of self, we grow up to create the exact environment we learn to thrive or survive in, period. That's all we know. We can't create past what we know. That's why experience teaches, words don't. So if our child or my child or your beautiful kids are always at the center of you, and she grows up and gets a man who cannot, he's a great man, but she can't be the center, because what if he got kids like you and them kids are the center?
She need to pick better.
She may have to pick better. but just say she.
Exactly. It's like, yeah, well, you choose the person that can make you the center. It's really that simple. If she doesn't have kids, why is she dating someone with kids who's going to put those kids in front of her? No, it's like that doesn't, I mean, of course, some women don't mind that, you know, like if they understand their children, of course they need their parent, but it is harder to understand that when you're not a parent yourself. That's why typically parents date other parents only, because we get it. So it's like, yeah, you can put your child first because I'm putting my child first. So we're both like kind of like having our own commitments, and then we come back together whenever the kids are good and we've taken care of business on that end.
Has someone who can't give her that same treatment, and that's her norm. You have to be realistic about, or should I say aware about, what norms am I creating for my kids? And I'm saying, because listen, I'm a product of what you're saying. I was the golden child. I was the child that came first. But I had to work through a lot of BS.
Well, we all do. We all have challenges. We all come with some shit, and that's why even right now we're discussing a very small percentage of people, because if we keep it in a stack, we all done been through some shit.
Oh yeah, all of us, yeah.
And it only makes us stronger in that sense, to where when we know how to handle something, and adversity builds character in that sense.
That's what I was going to say. It's more important for kids to see the family.
And this is what I don't like, is like, this is a problem with this whole counseling session or whatever this is. It's called cancel culture. I thought she was a therapist, Dr. Cheyenne Bryant. And so I like her name, Cheyenne. I haven't heard that name in a while. Or yeah, anyway, especially for a black girl. So a black woman, I like that name. But I thought she was giving therapy to Nick Cannon, but it feels like she's judging him, and it feels like she's trying to make him what she is. And she's saying, well, if you don't have the life I have, then you're doing something wrong. And it's like, and I like how Nick Cannon's kind of giving he's kind of giving these rebuttals and coming back at her from his standpoint or his viewpoint, because I can see what he's saying as well. I don't agree with everything he's saying, but I probably agree with him more than I agree with her. But I think just objectively looking at this, being like unbiased, I feel like, is this a counseling session or is it about converting people into Christianity? Because it's like they're just arguing back and forth. And it's the weirdest counseling session I've ever seen, because it's like you're trying to force your ideologies onto Nick Cannon, and Nick Cannon is not about to become the Christian that you want him to become. Like, he may, even if he becomes Christian, he ain't gonna be the one you want him to be. Or if he does, it's not happening today. So are you trying to make him that? Or like, what are we doing here? Because there was a live last night, and I was so glad I came in when I did, because I caught the end of it. And this woman was childless, and she called herself child free, which means, usually they think they're better than everyone when they call themselves that. And I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them do. And she was basically trying to act like, I'm better than other women who've ended up with the baby. And I'm going to definitely go over that clip in another video. But she was, saying like, oh, acting like she's better because she was dating a guy with like a Cam Newton. She was dating a guy with like a lot of kids, I think, by different women. And it's like, first of all, why would you be with somebody like that to begin with? So even if you are, like, I'm not going to say anything's wrong with it. It's like, whatever, do what you do. But you are trying to judge the other woman who did it and then had a baby with him, but you all were dating the same person. You're both dating the same guy. You're both dating Future. And the only difference is you were willing to unalive your child, and she wasn't. And it's not even about me judging people getting abortions, but that could be an issue. That could be an argument in and of itself. Like, because some people can look down on you, like you unalived your child, and that's like crazy. But the other issue is some women actually want to be mothers. Some men want to be fathers. And it's like, that's not a conversation I feel like we're having enough of, if at all. Everyone just assumes you like kind of got knocked up and this is happening to you, and you're just this unwilling participant, like, what's going on with my body? I'm just getting bigger every month. No, people are actively participating in this situation. We actively want to become parents. And it's like, why is this so weird in this country? Like, it's so anti-children, so anti-parenthood, so anti-family. So it's weird because people call themselves to be Christian, but I hear them saying this weird rhetoric all the time. Like, oh, you gave him a baby and he didn't marry you. Who's giving babies to people? I didn't have a kid to give to anyone. These are my children too. Like, they're my kids. So they just give, usually it's women giving men way too much credit, way too much power, way too much worship at the altar. It's like, get over yourself and him. Like, it's whatever. And so I hate hearing that. I hate hearing, I just hate hearing any rhetoric that makes it seem like women don't have autonomy of our own bodies. We don't have a brain, so we can't make our own decisions. We are nothing without a man, so we don't have any value. So it's like, oh, I can't, if I ain't got a man, I can't possibly have my own dreams. I can't possibly have my own desires and wants and needs. Like, I need to be a mother or I'm going to just die, like, that's really how I felt. And so a lot of women feel that way to the point where they're like, screw the guy, like Ebony K. Williams. There's actually a whole movement on TikTok that people probably don't even know about, which I'm going to talk about in other videos. This is, the channel's going to be crazy one. So it's definitely growing with my content, because I cover so many different topics. And so there's actually an entire movement, hashtag SMBC, single mother by choice, that I don't hear people really talk about or even acknowledge, because it doesn't fit with their narrative that some people actually just want children and not even the other adult. So you're going to IVF, you're turning to IUI to create a baby. You do not even care if the child has that other adult around, because some people just don't even bother, or they may not have met the right person yet and their time's running out, and our bodies only work for so long for women to have babies. Some people be like, oh, well, you can freeze your eggs. You could do a lot of things as a childless person too. I personally feel like if you know for a fact that you're not going to have children, why are you not just getting your tubes tied? We tell guys to get vasectomies. We've just started saying that, but we're telling guys to get vasectomies, get your tubes tied if you know you're not going to have children. Like, why are you even still able to get pregnant if you know unequivocally you're not going to have kids? So you just unaliving kids over and over. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, I can't even say. That's insane to me. So I'm just like, why are you just being more proactive? And I feel like it's because deep down, you do want to still have the possibility of having a child. And you're trying to act like you're so happy with your choice. But are you really? Because if you're so happy with your choice, you just tie those tubes and keep it pushing. So it's kind of like definitely a double standard. It's weird. How can you tell guys to not do that and not have babies everywhere if they don't want kids? But then women are like, I'm childless, but I'm going to just keep having abortions if I have to. Just get your tubes tied. Just like Mr. Vasectomy guy. Just go get a vasectomy. Like, stop creating kids that people don't want. That's the worst.
Dynamic, whether it's together or not, process through things that may be uncomfortable for them as well, and get to a resolve collectively than it is for them to be blinded with the fairy tale perspective or perception that's going to form that I'm always number one, or I'm using number one. And so that's kind of how life is going to life with me, because that kid won't know how to process the reality of what life does. Even when you reach the pinnacle of life and you get titles and success and all that. Look, that uphill climb is a mug, boy. And that uphill climb will show you what you came from or what you built. And also it'll show you what environment you were put. I came from a very adverse environment. So that's why I was able to catapult. Because I didn't know where I was running to. I knew I was running from, though. Mm-hmm. So I put them track shoes on. They're still on. You may see heels today, but them track shoes are never unlaced. Mm-hmm. Because I'm still running from something, right? And I just happened to run into a lot of amazing opportunities and things and people and blessings and work and healing. I got blessed to run into that by default and by choice. But if a child...
Called God's favor.
God's favor, baby. But we have to be very, very, very aware, from being in my field, of the norm we're creating for our babies, and of course, it's better to be involved and cause whatever.
So I think it's interesting that she's saying that I feel like she's trying to act like Nick has an issue. Nick Cannon has an issue. But even her running and still running, having these shoes on, running from something, like, she still has things to unpack. What are you running from? You're still not happy with the person that you are today if you're still running from something. That's like a mental illness in and of itself. I don't know what it is, but that can't be healthy to constantly be like feeling like you're running from something. That's weird. Like, so that goes to show again, like, she's not as important or better as she thinks she is, just because she got married and is raising this family in this typical way that most people are looking at it, like you had to do, how you had to do family or whatever, or do life, as we all say. But yeah, that's because I'm not running from anything. So that's like really problematic to me, that she's still feeling like she's running. Like, I know I have abandonment issues. I know I have, I don't like marriage. But I feel like, again, like, she's trying to put her life ideologies on Nick Cannon, and is saying like, oh, something's wrong with you because your child, like, if your child grows up and they are like, they want to be the center. So what if they do? I mean, aren't childless people trying to be the center of the universe? Isn't that what they're doing? So how are you saying that you can't create a life where you are the center? It's possible. It's probably more possible now than ever, which is why so many people are narcissistic and selfish and self-absorbed and self-centered, because it's possible. I mean, everyone's on TikTok, like, look at me, look at me. They've got 1 million followers just walking around in their underwear, just doing regular stuff in their bonnets or whatever. There's more opportunities now than ever for people to make themselves the center of the universe. I just watched this woman's video yesterday, and she was so beautiful. Actually, it was a couple of women. I'm noticing there's like a whole Barbie thing going on. And, you know, she was living her best life. She was living, I guess, a soft life, her best life, living in luxury, a life of prosperity. And I love that for her. But that was showing, yeah, you can definitely make the world all about you if you wanted to. So what's the problem here? Like, just because she may not like it, like Dr. Bryant may not like it, or she's looking down on someone who's doing that, that person is perfectly happy and that's their life and they can do what they want with their life. And never the two, you know, it shouldn't bother you, because I didn't, until I looked at found that woman's content, I was doing research for something else. I didn't know she existed. She's not hurting me. Like, I don't, I mean, she probably is in some way, indirect way, who knows? Because I know we are all connected at the end of the day, energy wise. But I mean, on a regular daily basis, I didn't even know she existed. I didn't even know there was a Barbie movement, but apparently there is something happening with that. And I wouldn't say Barbie, I don't know if it's a movement or a lifestyle or what, because obviously Barbie's been around forever, but it was stuff I've never even seen before. So you can definitely make the world all about you. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's your life. As long as you're not hurting other people, do what you want to do. What's the big deal?